All right. Okay, the recording set. Good. Welcome back. We're in our third week of the Oresteia by Aeschylus, and this week we're doing the libation bearers all in 1 week. So we only have 1 week to discuss this one, and then is it 2 weeks after that to do they call it the Eumenides in this play, right? And that brings us to the end of the quarter, and a happy spring break, and all of us should go down and visit Joseph where there's warmer weather. We had a fresh little snowfall in Chicago, but it's warmed up enough, at least where I am, that it didn't stick to the roads, and it's mostly off the grass by now. So,
Well, it's supposed to be 84 here tomorrow, so you can come to Southern
oh,
California.
yes, oh, wonderful, good.
But we got everything you didn't get. It's still snowing in Kalamazoo.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got the tractor out, plowed my driveway, and
Good.
all the things to the barn. You know, all the little pathways and stuff. But
Yeah. How
yeah,
much
even
did you get?
we're supposed to get 8 inches. I think we got probably 4. Maybe
Okay.
5.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't had. I don't know about your side of the lake, but on the Chicago side, we haven't had a big snowfall this year. Um, I think
We
like 4 inches is the biggest we've had.
we've had a couple, but it picks up moisture when it goes across
Right,
Lake Michigan. So
right.
whatever you get, we get your wind, and then we also get all the stuff you don't get.
Yeah, I'm glad the wind goes that way instead of. Never mind. Okay, we'll leave that one alone. Because there's Gary, Indiana down there on all that anyway. Never mind. Welcome back. So the libation bearers. It's pretty clear, what this is about. It's Orestes returns and he seeks his vengeance on his mother, or his vengeance for his father against his mother and Clytemnestra, his mother Clytemnestra and Aegisthus. That's it. It's pretty simple there. Basically, 2 locations. There's the grave of Agamemnon, and there's the palace. It's not terribly complex, and unless I'm not reading something. So, what did you see in this? What does this add to your readings? Yeah, Nicholas, get us started.
I like this one. The first one was kind of dry for me, but I picked up love-hate relationship and the male versus female power structure, and let me see the last one. I had to write them all down.
Well, it's good to take notes. I tell my
I
students that all the time.
I have no choice. I'm science and math oriented, and this is kind of a new territory for me. So, the house of Atreus and the divine fate of not being able to purge this curse and how it's perpetuated, it seems like, for 2 or 3 generations. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm even in the ballpark, but that's
Of
what I
course you're
got.
in the ballpark. That's there. Have confidence, Nicholas. You're doing fine for an old science guy, an old military expert. You're doing well in these humanities. That's it. I think that's got the big idea. There's of course nuances to it. Anybody else? What did you pick up? Although I would be interested, the male female. Nicholas, what are you making of when you say the male female? What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that it seems that to me, let me see here. I even had to print it out and redo it. It seems that Aegisthus, I think is his name.
Aegisthus.
Aegisthus.
Yeah.
He proves to be more of a female character. I mean, it's the men obviously have control, but even in that control, the female seems to be able to be dominant in many different situations, and it's portrayed throughout this libations that the women are definitely there. There's a feminine undercurrent that
Okay.
that you can't really deny it, and the women get the revenge through the men by the manipulation of the men.
Okay. We can come back to that a little bit, or if somebody wants to pick up on it. But Bonnie, you were going to come in on this a little bit,
Well,
or
I was
on
just-
something else. Yep.
It was on just, I noticed the chorus, the role of the
Yes.
chorus seemed a little bit different.
Right.
To me, it was more of a call for action. The chorus seemed to be calling for action, calling for something to happen, as opposed to just recounting what had been happening. So I thought that was interesting with the chorus this time.
Bonnie, who is the chorus in this play?
Is it the women who are now slaves because they were brought back?
Probably the slave women brought back.
And they're not really,
Troy.
and they're not really slaves. I mean, they weren't slaves in Troy, I'm assuming.
Of course not. Right? No. So they're domestic. There would be domestic help at this point.
Right.
But yeah, Joseph, what else?
Just on the chorus, when I watched this play on YouTube, there was the chorus seemed like a large, at least at the start, a large procession of mourners.
Yes. And I presume that in YouTube they'd be female. Yeah, go ahead, Bonnie.
Well, weren't they the ones that Clytemnestra wanted to send to like soothe the dead because she had had those nightmares? And instead of going and trying to soothe the dead, I got the impression that they were kind of riling everything up and let's kill the Clytemnestra and just as.
Okay, good. James, what else?
Yes, first of all, Stephen, I'm in your Wednesday evening section.
You know, I thought so, James. I thought there was a little something wasn't right.
If the others
Sorry.
would help me, yes, I'd like to, and I'm in Florida, so I'm also in a warm spot. I don't
Good.
feel guilty, though. I don't feel guilty. My comment when I read this was it's similar to the others, but a little different take, is that how really there was no one to defend Clytemnestra and Augustus. The chorus, the leaders, of course, Orestes, Electra, everybody was against this leader. And it struck me an example, a leader that no one likes, but the power of dictatorship, that no one could do anything about unless there was something dramatic done. There was no defenders of Clytemnestra that I recall.
Oh, James, let me come. No defenders of Clytemnestra. What does she need defense for?
Well, she doesn't. She has all the power. But basically, they're everybody's
Oh, I see.
encouraging to go after to get rid of her in one way or the other.
Right. So the chorus is clearly against Clytemnestra.
As I recall, yes.
Yeah. Why would they be against her?
Well, based upon what she concocted and did in the prior play for an otherwise revered person, Agamemnon.
Okay, at least that, but I don't know if they are, let's say they are women that have been abducted in war from Troy. Do they care about Agamemnon? It would seem that it's his party that has brought them into, has taken them from their home and put them into at least a role of servitude. Correct. When they were probably noble women from Troy. James, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they care, but they care about sort of roiling the waters. I mean, they would really like it if there was trouble in the kingdom. So I see them as kind of egging things on and almost accelerating this cycle of violence, as they're encouraging Orestes to come in and have his revenge. Okay.
Karen, did you want to come in on this? No. Okay. Well, let's. Why don't we pick up with the action? We've already mentioned that. I mean, it opens with Orestes and Pilates. I don't know how you Pilates. It sounds like we're going to a class this afternoon or something. Let's see. How could we pronounce it? We could be Pilated. Let's see. Pilates. We could do it that way. Pilates. That's a possibility. But anyway, it opens there at the burial place of Agamemnon, right? And the and it's Orestes for the most part speaking. What do you find in his speech that gets this play started? Yeah. Anything about his play that gets us going, James? Yeah. I mean, his part.
It's a prayer, and it's a prayer to Hermes, who's the god of sort of boundaries, right? That's the god that goes back and forth across the borders of, in this case, from the gods to the humans. So it's sort of invoking that defined kind of, liminal kind of crossing the boundaries sort of figure in the mythology.
Yeah, very good. Hermes gets involved here. It's a prayer. What is he praying about? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think we learned that he's on a mission from if not God, a mission from the gods. He's been told by the oracle that he better go do this, or else things will really be bad for him. It sounds to me like he's praying to Hermes for strength to kind of cross the border, if nothing else, into his homeland, and now carry this out. So he's crossing from a state of sort of needing to do something to the state of doing something. That seems to be a boundary that he's crossing.
Oh,
this is like the point of action.
Yeah, interesting. James, that's a really sort of advanced kind of point there. We open up this play and there's a scene. It is Orestes at the gravesite of Agamemnon, and he's making this prayer, but we only learn later in the play why he has returned. He's returned to avenge his father's murder, which he has come to know was committed by his mother. But that we discover that as we get further into the play. Is there anything that intimates that at the beginning here? Here, look what he says. I'm at the, one of the opening lines, line 3 maybe. I have come home to my own soil, an exile home at last. Here at the mounded grave I call my father. Hear me, I'm crying out to you. And he cuts 2 locks from his hair and says what they're for. I was not here to mourn you when you died, my father, never gave you the last salute when they bore your corpse away. And then the next thing you know, he sees the approaching of the libation bearers, the chorus, the leader, with Electra there. So right at the beginning, he's there. It gives the impression he might be there simply to mourn his father's death. And we don't really discover the true reason why he's there until later on in the play. And of course, the chorus shows up, and the first sign I think that we get of any kind of drama or any kind of tension might be when the chorus says at the top of page 179, around line 38, bristling terror struck the seer of the house The nightmare ringing clear breathed its wrath in sleep. In the midnight watch, a cry, the voice of terror, deep in the house, bursting down on the woman's darkened chambers. Yes, and the old ones, skilled at dreams, swore oaths to God and called. The proud dare stir under earth. They rage against the ones who took their lives. Now, if that has any meaning in the play, maybe we got to start wondering what's going on here. So the chorus sort of continues on with that, and then Electra comes in. This is the first time we meet Electra. What do you think of her? What do we know about Electra from the previous play, if anything?
Well, she's the sister not only of Orestes, but Iphigenia too. So her sister was slaughtered and sacrificed at the beginning of all this. So makes me wonder if she's got some feels about all this family history.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, so when she first comes on the scene we could be wondering what is her understanding? What does she know? What are her emotions about what's going on? Or what has happened, what has transpired? Joseph, yeah.
Yeah, as we go on a little bit, and Nicholas made the point of the women influencing the men to the acts that they commit, and I can just see the lines that I've underlined in some of Electra's dialogue. She says later, "Mother pawned us for a husband, Aegisthus." And then she goes to say, "Kill the killers in return for justice." So she seems to have motives and really advocating for an outcome.
Yeah, good. Yes, she does seem to be advocating for an outcome, but she's a little timid. She doesn't know what to do, remember? So there, around line, she comes in at around line 83, thereabouts, She says, "Dear women, you keep the house in order best you can. And now you've come to the grave to say a prayer with me, my escorts. I'll need your help with this. What to say when I pour the cup of sorrow?" Lifting her, "What kindness, what prayer can touch my father? Shall I say, bring him love for love, a woman's love for husband? My mother, love from her? I've no taste for that. No words to say as I run the honeyed oil on father's tomb. Or try the salute we often use at graves. A wreath for a wreath, now bring the giver's gifts to match. No, give them pain for pain. Or silent, dishonored, just as father died. Empty it out for the soil to drink, and then retrace my steps like a slave sent out with scorings left from the purging of the halls, and throw the cup behind me, looking straight ahead. Help me decide, my friends. Join me here. We nurse a common hatred in the house. Don't hide your feelings. No, fear no one. Destiny waits us all. Born free or slaves who labor under another's hand. Speak to me, please. Perhaps you've had a glimpse of something better. There, that pretty much sets it up, I think. So let's take this apart. What's in this plea of hers? What do you see in it? Yeah, James.
Well, there's a really wonderful sort of image where she's bearing this cup of some kind of ritual, religious significance. They're going to pour out the wine or something as like a ritual, a very sacred thing. But she compares it to the slaves sent out with the scourings, like the dirty mop water. She says it's like, well, we just cleaned up after the party, and that's what I'm spilling on the ground here. So there's this really wonderful conflation of the sacred and the really profane, like literally the sewage.
Very, very nice. Wow, that's really good. You've had a nice party. There's half-drunk glasses of wine sitting around, and you just sort of pour them in together into this one ritual cup that you take out to the gravesite. Oh, that's a really good image. A good analysis, James. Sorry. Joe, what else?
She's obviously annoyed that Clytemnestra would, having been the murderer, would now want to go out and make a religious offering to her dead husband in order to quiet the spirits of the house. She's obviously thinking that her mother is rather two-faced and resents having been sent with this errand, I think.
Yeah, good. That's got to be it, doesn't it? There's the idea, but then what is her appeal to the women who are with her?
She wants them to help her figure out what to do, how to make an offering on the grave, and what kind of prayer to offer.
Why should they care?
I don't know. I get the impression that she thinks that they hold Agamemnon in high regard.
Yeah, maybe so. Bonnie, what else?
Well, Clytemnestra killed Cassandra, and wasn't Cassandra Paris's sister?
Very good.
So they want some revenge, maybe for the killing of Cassandra.
Good. And so here we nurse a common hatred in the house. That, I think, is the revealing line. Yeah, James.
They also have a similar social position. I mean, I think not exactly, of course, because Electra is not a slave, but they're both in a fairly subordinate place in their societies. So, you know, if Electra's trying to figure out what to do, and she really doesn't know, I mean, she's kind of turning in a way to her sisters, these other women who also are, you know, how do I navigate this? I mean, I don't have any power here. How do I live with that? You know, you have to live without having any power. What do I do here? So there's another kind of way that they might be in sympathy with each other.
Yeah, very good. Nicholas, that gets to your point earlier there of gender roles here, that here the women are coming together, but it's not women against men in this case. Here it's, you know, it's the daughter Electra, the chorus, the servant girls against Clytemnestra. Yeah. So how does this chorus help her out? Maybe let's go to page 182, or starting around, let's go, you know, after Electra's long speech, then there's a dialogue between Electra and the leader. I'd be happy to play the leader role. I don't, men, by the way, were the actors. They didn't have female actors. So it's okay for me to be, to play this role. But, you know, it'd probably be nice to have either Bonnie or Karen play the role of Electra. Either one want to volunteer to read? Okay, Karen, thank you. So look, I'm going to start at around line 107, thereabouts. And we're going to go down until 125. There was where Electra has the long prayer or the long speech. So I will start. The leader says, I revere your father's death mound like an altar. I'll say a word now that you ask that comes from deep within me.
Speak on with everything you feel for father's grave.
Say a blessing as you pour for those who love you.
And of the loved ones, whom to call my friends?
First yourself, then all who hate Aegisthus.
I and you. I can say a prayer for us, and then for
You know, try to say it.
Is there someone else to rally to our side?
Remember Orestes, even abroad and gone?
Well said. The best advice I've had.
Now for the murderers. Remember them and
What? I'm so unseasoned. Teach me what to say.
let some god or man come down upon them.
Judge or avenger? Which?
Just say, the one who murders in return.
How can I ask the gods for that and keep my conscience clear?
How not? And pay the enemy back in kind? And we'll stop there. There's a good amount here, a little bit to chew on here. What do you see in this exchange? Joseph, yeah.
What struck me about it immediately is the process by elimination reasoning. So who to be friends with? Well, these are the people not, I won't necessarily say who you should be friends with, but you should not be friends with this person and this person and this person. And then who are we left with? Well, we're certainly left with Orestes.
Good.
And maybe some others. That's the
Nice.
advice.
Here. Or go ahead. And then Nicholas, whoever was coming in.
It feels like Electra's being a little disingenuous. I mean, oh, who could rally to my side? Oh, maybe my big brother or my twin brother or whatever. That she's already thinking all this, but she wants other people to put it into words first.
Oh, Karen. Let's see. What should I say? There's a word for that. There's a word for your point of view, and somehow it's escaping me. You know, it's how disbelieving of you. How critical of Electra's point of view. So you don't buy her naivete here?
It's hard for me to believe. I mean, it's been years since Iphigenia. I mean, even if Electra was born, you know, right 9 months after Agamemnon left, she
Right.
is at this point a, you know, at least in her mid-teens and possibly older. I mean, and she knows she's been, I read somewhere, I think on Wikipedia, that Odysseus and Clytemnestra had other children and that she was, distant from, she was not accorded the same honor that her half siblings were, and that's why she's hanging out with the slave leaders. I find it very hard to believe that she's that nice.
Okay, all right. Nicholas, were you going to come in on this?
Yeah, I think it's just, I totally agree. I think she's basically she knows exactly what she wants to do, but she wants other people to kind of reinforce what she knows she wants to do. So she's playing this little game. Well, I don't really know what to do, but like Karen said, I believe that she's neck deep in it, and she's just playing the game, and she knows that she can, and she's got a chorus here of leaders that are kind of leading her to where she's already at, but she's really glad to have somebody kind of take her along on this little journey.
It sounds a little bit like you're saying something like bias confirmation.
Sure.
She wants other people to confirm what she already thinks.
Sure. I mean, she's already involved in it.
Go ahead, Karen, and then we'll go Bonnie and James and Joseph, I think, was going to come in.
I think she probably also doesn't want to be like her mother. She doesn't like her mother, rightfully so. And they made a big deal in Agamemnon that Clytemnestra made her own plans and she was in charge and all that. And I think that Electra doesn't want to be that woman.
Okay, Bonnie?
I agree with Karen. And to Karen's point, she wants to have a clear conscience. she doesn't want any blood on her hands, or she doesn't want to dirty her hands. She wants to have a clear conscience in it.
Okay, James, go ahead.
She might also be testing the waters, because maybe it's a very dangerous thing to say the name Orestes at this point, right? I mean, maybe that's a very, very, you don't just go around wishing, putting up signs saying, Orestes, please come home. I mean, maybe that's a very dangerous position to take, given who Orestes is relative to the kingdom here. So maybe she's like testing the waters and saying, oh, who should I call on? You know, when she knows, of course, who it is, but she needs like some resonance with the people around her to make sure that it's safe to say that here.
Oh, interesting. I see a kind of spectrum developing among us. That is that Electra goes from someone who is naive and honestly seeking help to someone who is testing the waters, trying to get some, or someone who she has conviction, but she wants confirmation. She wants the assistance of others. Oh, but now she's a little bit testy to see what others are going to say, and it's Orestes. To then the other end is that she knows what she's doing, and she's manipulating the chorus of slave girls to join her side. So there's this spectrum I hear in what y'all are saying. Joseph?
The point I wanted to make, which is slightly different, but it does flow a little bit from what Bonnie was saying. She must bear responsibility for her choice. So she is, I think she has made a choice. There's the question here, judge or avenger, which? So she has a choice there to pick either revenge or a process of justice. And she seems to have happily gone with the revenge pathway, with the murder in return pathway. And when I'm thinking of choice, I'm thinking a lot of what we've been doing here with Aristotle, where we've spoken a lot about choice and deliberation and responsibility and choosing good or evil. And I think she's picked the pathway of evil, and therefore she bears responsibility for that because she made the choice.
Oh boy, interesting. That Joseph, that's really interesting. What I hear you saying is that when she raises the question, judge or avenger, and then the leader says, just say the one who murders in return, that is avenger, right? That's not judge. But there now she's praying for another killer to come, right? So go ahead, Joseph.
Just to Bonnie's point, I'm not satisfied she absolves herself of responsibility in making a choice just because she puts it as a question to the leader.
Very good.
She wasn't manipulating the outcome.
Okay, very good. James, come on in, yeah.
Yes, I would add a little bit to on line 100, when she started her speech, she talks about, we nurse the common hatred in the house. I think that's kind of declarative that there's no doubt there's a common hatred, which would be treasonous, I guess, under many circumstances. So I don't view her as naive as some of the discussants here. Just a thought.
It's probably me more than anybody else that starts off with, that suggested her naivete. I think all the rest of y'all are saying, no, she's quite wily and knows what she's doing. Right? Anybody else on this point? What else is here? Is there anything else here that you'd want to point out? Yeah, Nicholas.
I think this particular passage sets the stage for what's coming up.
Yes,
they're actually telling you.
Good.
And it sets everything up. It's kind of giving you the rundown of literally who the actors in this terrible tragedy are going to be. And
Yes.
it's laying out the fact that there's a whole bunch of hatred
Yeah.
and
Okay.
discontent.
Good. Yeah. Good. Very nice, Nicholas. It clearly is setting it up, and so that by the time we get to the end of the exchange between the leader and Electra, we have expectations of what's going to happen, how it's going to unfold. Karen, yeah.
I also feel like when they ask judge or avenger, I mean,
Yeah.
that what the leader says before is to let some god or man come down upon it, and I think that follows down. So God, judge, man, avenger. Because
Oh, good.
only the gods, men won't be able to impose justice on this because Clytemnestra and Jesus are in power. So I don't know. Is this making sense?
Yes. No, I think your point is a good one. That is that you have this, you have the upper level of sort of the divine justice of it all. That is that justice is something that the people that are living with. Now, there are different forms of justice that we've talked about that we saw in the earlier play. There is the avenging kind of justice, which seems to be operating in most of this, and the avenging of the killing of the children, and now in the previous play of Agamemnon, it would be the avenging of, well, for Clytemnestra, it's the avenging of the killing of Iphigenia, presumably, if not just an outright murder to take over the throne. I don't know if we talked a whole lot about that. And so then there is the avenging of the killing of Agamemnon, which is coming along. But then, of course, that's going to perpetuate more that goes on. So what is justice is probably one of the questions that's being raised here. And is that justice the same old justice that we've seen before? Is it the Furies kind of justice? Is it Apollo's kind of justice? Is it Athena's kind of justice? So there are different elements of justice that are going on in the mix of the human emotions that are involved. So, Karen, I see your point. I think it's a valid one to make. What about the meeting between Electra and Aegisthus? What did you see in that?
Aegisthus or Orestes?
I'm sorry, of Orestes. Yeah. Yes, James.
Well, just right before we go to that, I just want to point out in passing that Electra next does the same thing that Orestes does at the beginning. She prays to Hermes. So again, this sort of, when I think of Hermes as like the god of the boundary crossing between worlds, where something's about to happen or about to cross a line, because both of these major characters have kind of asked for divine help to cross some kind of a line. And that's what she does. And then we're going to go. And then she's going to meet Orestes.
Yeah, interesting. James, when we think of Hermes, just straight up, what do we think of his role? I'm gonna grab. I don't use Wikipedia and things like that. I have good old-fashioned desk references. How about that? And so here I have the Illustrated Encyclopedia of the Classical World, my gray beard gives me away. I'm old-fashioned. And to turn the pages of a book, to me, is still wonderful, because as I turn the pages to look for what I'm looking for, I see so many other things. And I have developed the discipline over the years to continue to go to the thing I'm looking for, rather than to be delayed by other things along the way. But I might go back to those other things. And so I'm going to just turn and open my book to Hermes here. And there's a little bit of an entrance here, But let me just read a little bit. It says, Hermes, Greek god, son of Zeus and Maia, the daughter of Atlas. He is first mentioned by Homer, and his more important myth is told with humor in the Homeric hymn to Hermes and by later writers as well. He was born on Mount Selene and grew quickly, showing his cleverness and deceit on his first day. He stole the cattle of Apollo, and it goes on. It tells that story. After Apollo traced him to his cave, he appeased him by giving the lyre. He also invented the pipe. Zeus warned him to refrain from lying and stealing and made him his herald. Zeus makes him his herald. And so then it says, originally Hermes had been a phallic deity of the pre-Hellenic religion, occupying stones at crossing roads. So there's James's point, at crossroads. In the myth are noted his familiar characteristics as he evolved into a Greek god, but probably his most characteristic representation was Herm, that is, a stone or a pillar with a human head or bust on the top and a phallus. Such herms were set up at crossroads and considered as protectors. So to your point there, James, he is known for these crossroads. Now, I don't know how we're going to work in the phallic aspect of it, the phallus into this. But then he also later becomes known as the god of messenger, the messenger god who then carries messages cross boundaries. And so you pray to Hermes to take your prayer to whomever, something along those lines. Now, along the way in this book, there was Heraclitus and Heracles and various other things. Anyway, just a plug for good old-fashioned books and desk references. But James's point, I think, is a really good one, in that, James, you are taking this, the plain meaning of Hermes, and you are abstracting from it an idea. That is that Electra and Orestes are contemplating crossing boundaries. They are contemplating children killing their parents. Something along those lines, right? Very good. I couldn't help but I hear several times your explanation of Hermes to try to bring those together with the myths that are connected to Hermes. I hope I didn't lose our thread of where we were going with all of this. And we're talking about Electra and her role in all of this. So again, let me come back to this. What do you make then? What comes out of her encounter with Orestes? What results from it? Oh, I don't want to be overly directing in this. I'm just thinking, after she and Orestes have their conversation, what are you left with in the play? Well, how about I'm left with a reunion. That is, that Orestes and Electra have now reunited their familial relationship with each other that has been interrupted by their parents, who sort of sent them off in different directions for whatever reasons. And now they've been reunited, and there's this recognition scene at the gravesite where Orestes shows her her locks and their footprints. I found that to be very interesting there. That is, look, we are alike. You're the same. That's at least one thing that comes out of that. Anything else? Karen, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
I think she seems very happy to hand over the leadership role to him. She doesn't say like, oh, well, I'm already working on a plan. She's like, oh, well, what should we do? So, and she's happy for, I don't know if that's in a way of her trying to salve her conscience, or if that, it's just societal. Is he older than her, or are they twins? I was confused by the text.
I'm not sure if they're twins or not. I've heard of that. I don't remember. I did not review that. So I'm not sure their relationship to one another in terms of age. Does anybody know this? Okay, I'll look it up for next time. I'll make sure I know that for next time. Did you want to add more, Karen?
Well, actually, the thing that interested me the most was then Orestes' speech coming up about how Apollo told him that he had to do this.
Good. Yes. Good. And I think we should try to find that.
It's on 191.
Good. Page 191?
Yep.
Or page 191?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to read that part?
Sure.
Yeah, good.
Apollo will never fail me. No, his tremendous power, his oracle charges me to see this trial through. I can still hear the god, a high voice ringing with winters of disaster, piercing the heart within me, warm and strong. Unless I hunt my father's murderers, cut them down in their own style, they destroyed my birthright. Gore them like a bull, he called, or pay their debt with your own life, one long career of grief. He revealed so much about us, told how the dead take root beneath the soil. They grow with hate and plague the lives of men. He told of the leprous boils that ride the flesh, their wild teeth gnawing the mother tissue. Aye, and a white scurf spreads like cancer over these. And worse, he told how assaults of furies spring to life on the father's blood. You can see them, eyes burning, grim brows working over you in the dark sword of the dead, your murdered kinsman pleading for revenge. And the madness haunts you, the midnight watch, the empty terror shakes you, harries, drives you on, an exile from your city, a brazen whip will mutilate your back.
Go ahead, keep going, Karen, doing fine.
For such of us, no share in the wine bowl, no libations poured in love. You never see your father's wrath, but it pulls you from the altars. There is no refuge, none to take you in. A pariah, reviled, at long last you die, withered in the grip of all this dying.
Yeah, very good. One more.
Such oracles are persuasive, don't you think? And even if I am not convinced, the rough work of the world will still do so. Well, the rough work of the world is still to do. So many yearnings meet and urge me on. The gods' commands, mounting sorrow for father. Besides, the lack of patrimony presses hard. And my compatriots, the glory of men who toppled Troy with nerves of sinking steel, go at the beck and call of a brace of women. Woman-hearted he is. If not, we'll soon see.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot here. Karen, you started off by talking about Apollo. So what's the connection? What connection are you making with Orestes and Apollo?
Well, I guess what bothered me about it later is sort of knowing what happens further is if Apollo told Orestes that he had to do this,
Yeah.
But then he still, it seems like then he should be with the one with the clear conscience, but that's clearly not how it ends up. And so that one really, as I
Yeah.
was reading this though, and I heard all the hatred in his voice, I wonder, so did he get was it a true prophecy, or was it something that he,
Yeah.
yeah.
Something he conjures up in his own thinking.
Well, not unconsciously conjures it. So
Aha.
I think he believes it, but
Okay.
whether it's a true prophecy, I'm not sure about that.
Of course, I would ask the question, what do you mean by true prophecy? Does he consider it a true prophecy? I don't think you're asking whether we think it's a true prophecy, or maybe you are. So whether he thinks it's a true prophecy, a true oracle from Apollo.
I think that he does, but I'm not sure within the context of the play if that is correct.
Yeah, James, go ahead.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it does seem like one way to read this is Apollo's playing a trick on him. He says, you have to go do this or your life's going to be awful. And then he does it and his life is awful. But Stephen, as you were reading from, that wonderful thing called a book, by the way, of course, you're preaching to the choir, of course.
Oh, good.
But one of the things that you read to us is that Hermes is also the trickster god, right? And that idea of interpreting the oracles, I mean, we saw that in Herodotus, like, what does the oracle say? You will destroy a great kingdom. You're like, okay, great, let's go. But it's a dangerous business to ask for direction from the gods, because it's a tricky business, right? What does that really mean? If the god says go do this or else your life is awful, well, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
And it's
very good. Yeah, go ahead, Karen, and then Nicholas.
And also, what we were talking about before with that the gods would be giving out justice. I mean,
right.
It does seem just that Clytemnestra and I guess this do not profit from what they did, but the person who does the justice in this case is still cursed.
Let me just look at, in light of that, Karen, what you're saying, the chorus says something on page 195, and it's around line 395. It's a short little stanza here. The chorus says, "It is the law. When the blood of slaughter wets the ground, it wants more blood. Slaughter cries for the fury of those long dead to bring destruction on destruction, churning in its wake." Now, there's, the chorus here is saying that this reaches the level of law. This kind of, or the way I'm reading this, I would say there's a kind of human practice that has reached the level of law. That when the blood of the slaughter wets the ground, it wants more blood. Notice the way it personifies blood, and that blood has desire. So the spilled blood has desire for more spilled blood, and the only way in which there would be justice in that is if the victims of the spilled blood are the ones now spilling the new blood. Bonnie, yeah.
I guess, according to James' point, Orestes is kind of in a hard spot. He's in a hard place. To do justice, to revenge his father's death, he has to do a wrongdoing, which is killing his mother, which is a terrible injustice. So he can't revenge his father without committing another terrible injustice.
Does he seem broken up over this, Orestes? And is Electra, torn apart over this?
I think maybe that's what tears him up in the end.
Okay. Yeah, maybe in the end. All right, good. Joseph, what else?
I'll think about whether he seems torn up about it, but I wanted to just go back to the Apollo point and back to that issue of choice. He would lack agency, so he wouldn't be fully responsible for his own actions because he's really acting at the command of Apollo.
Oh.
I wouldn't hold him to the same level of moral responsibility.
Aha.
That
So,
may also be convenient.
Joseph, let me just elaborate. I mean, try to get more out of you on this. You're saying that if he fully believes that Apollo has sent him on this mission, then he has reduced his culpability in the action.
That's right. He's not. He's an agent of the god. He's not an agent of his own free will, which makes him less personally responsible. I think also, though, this is convenient for him as well, which I think your point about him being torn, he does give different justifications throughout where he's clearly personally angry toward Clytemnestra. So I think that it suits him to be able to carry out the bloody act.
Aha. Yeah.
But he does use the language later of the god's commands, for example.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I think one of the things that we'll do is we'll get to the scene itself, or maybe just prior to the scene, and see the dialogue between Orestes and Clytemnestra. I think that's revealing also. James, did you want to come in on this?
Not this, James, no.
Okay. Anybody else on anything that we've done so far? Karen, yeah.
Well, I was interested in, you mentioned earlier about Clytemnestra, like, well, maybe she just killed Agamemnon because she wanted the throne. And
Right.
I don't think, it seems kind of normal that Orestes would be really mad that his mom killed his dad, then his mom married somebody else, and her second family are going to get all of the things that he should have inherited from his father. I mean,
Right.
even if his father was dead, he should have been the next king.
Right. And you may remember that, I don't know if I can find it, but it was a conversation between Electra and Orestes. And Electra was talking, she was recalling how the two of them were sent off. The two of them were in some way removed from Argos and kind of pushed aside. Did anybody else get that sense from that conversation? Bonnie, yeah.
I thought it was Aegisthus who was the agent in wanting them gone.
Okay, that Clytemnestra was not involved in that. That she was involved, of course, but it wasn't her thinking. It was mostly Aegisthus.
Well, he might have pushed her towards that thought.
Okay.
If she's the type of person that could be swayed, on that part I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Does anybody know where that could be found? I promise you before he can ask me, stranger, who are you? Oh yeah, that's later on. Okay. Yeah, I had the impression that it was an action taken deliberately by both Aegisthus and Clytemnestra to get rid of Electra and Orestes. That they were both willing partners. Did anybody else want to weigh in on that? Okay, we'll let that go for the time being. Where would you like to turn next before we sort of go to the murder scene itself? Is there anything else in the pages that catches your attention? I have a statement here by Electra on page 196. You know, it's around a little before line 420. Electra is speaking. She says, reckless, brutal mother, oh dear God, the brutal, cruel courtier, the warlord stripped of his honor guard and stripped of mourning rites. You dared entomb your lord unwept, unsung. This is Electra's attitude towards her mother. I think, and I skipped over something else when Orestes was speaking. Sorry, let me just go back and pick this up and put that out there as well. It's at the bottom of page 193. It's around line 350. Orestes is speaking, and he says, if only at Troy, a Lycian cut you down, my father, gone, with an aura left at home behind you, children to go their ways, and the eyes look on them bright with awe, and the tomb you win on headland seas, away would buoy up the house. And so there he's picking up on what would have been a much more honorable death for Agamemnon than the one that he suffered. Would that have been the case? He himself would have benefited from that glory. Okay, I just thought I'd put those ideas out there just to make sure that we say them out loud. Anyone else before we sort of turn to get closer to the palace and the murders themselves, and especially the conversation between Orestes and Clytemnestra? James, yeah.
Maybe just real quick in passing, I just noticed another occurrence of something that I see a lot right where we're going, and that is the idea of double. Things get to sort of, there's two of these and two of these and two of these, and then it explicitly says double, double, double. And the first one I see is on page 194, about 372. It says, the double lash is striking home. So we're going to see this come up again and again, where there's this doubling, where sometimes you have to wonder, what's the second thing? What's being compared in the things here? Yeah,
right. What's the other shoe or something like that?
Right.
Very good. Thank you. So that would be, sorry for being a little pedantic. That's what we would call a motif, right? So that you have this idea, this fixed idea that recurs. And what does it mean each time it recurs? Okay. Let's see. Orestes is speaking on page 202. Let's try another one here. It's at the top of the page. Are we yet? Not yet. He's speaking to the chorus. Oh, right. Yeah, sorry. Let me back up. Page 201. And you know the dream, he says at the top of the page. You know the dream. You can tell it clearly. She dreamed she bore a snake, said so herself. Let's see. And she awoke. Now, it goes on. Sorry, I'll just quickly go through this. Come to the point. Where does the story end? She swaddled it like a baby, laid it to rest. And food, what did the little monster want? There is this image that's going on here, this image of nursing. She gave it her breast to suck. She was dreaming. And didn't it tear her nipple? The brute inhuman blood-curdled milk with each sharp tug. Orestes, no empty dream, the vision of a man. What does that mean, the vision of a man? That's strange. Karen, what do you think? Are we going to go Freud here or what? I don't know. Go ahead.
He sees himself as the snake.
Oh.
I'm going to kill my mother. It's his vision. It's his plan.
Isn't that it? Right. as you know, there are images of a snake at the breast of a woman throughout the ancient world. I can't help but think that they're playing on this. I want to learn a little bit more about that. Maybe I can report that on that to you next time. Very good, Karen. That is that Orestes is the snake. Joseph, go ahead.
If that is the correct interpretation of of what Orestes sees himself as, then that would suggest he is torn. I was suggesting before that it may be might convenient to him to act at the command of Apollo. But if he sees himself as a snake, well, I think that that's a pretty low thing, and he probably doesn't think very highly of himself if he's going to kill his mother. So that, you know, he's conflicted if he's saying that kind of thing.
Interesting. So, Joseph, what you're suggesting there is that the snake is somehow a reviled creature or reptile or whatever we want to say. Can we be sure of that? You know, is the snake, where does that come from, Joseph, for you to have that approach?
Well, I mean, I guess
a lot of snakes down there in Australia, I suppose.
Yeah. And they're still reviled. That's universal, I think. But I suppose it's a Adam and Eve concept that I'm referring to. But and this is, of course, pre-Christianity.
Yes, right.
So perhaps the snake has a different meaning in 500, 400 BC.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about the context. I wouldn't be surprised if snakes are reviled in Greek culture as well, but I'd be guided by you on that.
Yeah. James, go ahead. James Den, unmute. James, you want to unmute?
Sorry. Snakes molt, and I think in some situations, they change. The symbols of physicians, the caduceus and the Aeschylus, the snake wound around. Some of that is that I don't know exactly, but there's something to do with the molting of the snake and can change. So maybe it's not as nefarious as it might appear.
Yeah, James, you're onto something. In antiquity, certainly that's the case. And Joseph, I really like the fact that you said this is, of course, before Christianity. So there is no association here of the snake with the devil. That's not here at all in this play, nor in, and I would say not even in the garden story. We'll leave that aside. But also in the garden story, the snake is considered to be an intelligent being, a wise being, a wise, intelligent being. And at James's point, this molting is associated with metamorphosis. It's also associated with resurrection or coming back from the dead. There's numerous positive qualities about the snake in antiquity. And there are various rituals of, it's interesting, various rituals, and I need to do a little bit more background work on this. Joseph, I know that you have done some work in the arts there. You might want to look for the snake in Greek art, because there is a ritual, and I can't remember what it is, where bare-breasted women conduct rituals with snakes. I know that it sounds really strange, but it's there, and I will also look that up. I didn't think to look up these things and to review some of these things, but they're coming back, and I'm going to look this up and find out. So I'm not sure that the snake is so reviled in this play. But it's certainly not welcomed. We can at least put it that way. The snake is not welcomed by Clytemnestra. It wakes her up in terror, and she wants to send off the slaves down to the grave of Agamemnon to pour out libations of some sort. At least that. Nicholas, and then I think James, were you going to come in, James Wahlberg?
Not right now.
Okay, all right. Nicholas, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I thought the snake, she had a premonition of the snake biting her, or it did bite her in the
Yes, she does.
in the dream.
Right. Yes, she does.
So I was looking
So
at the significance of that. You know, the fact that there is a snake and all the previous things you said, and in the end, she winds up the snake. At least in her dream, it actually bites her. So
yes.
there's an actual connection there. It's
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah, very good. Karen, what else?
Well, I was just looking on Wikipedia because I don't have a book about
Good.
snakes
Yeah,
available
good,
right
good.
now. And it looks like the ancient Greeks thought snakes were dangerous, but they didn't necessarily think they were bad.
Yeah, okay, good.
So if Orestes was looking at himself that way, as I am this dangerous instrument of vengeance,
Yeah.
then that would be less him doubting.
Yeah, and clearly she's troubled by the dream, without a doubt. And as people have made the connection, Orestes seems to be the snake. But look, who else plays a role here? We were talking about women. Sorry, just one little point here, page 205, the bottom of the page. Before the last words of the chorus here, it's around 6:30. It says, "The anvil of justice stands fast, and fate beats out her sword. Tempered for glory, a child will wipe clean the inveterate stain of blood shed long ago. Fury brings him home at last, the brooding mother fury." What do you make of that? This is the last word of the chorus before Orestes heads to the palace. I think this is really thought-provoking, these last lines of the chorus here.
Is the chorus saying if Orestes proceeds with the murder that he's the one that has cleansed up the family's curse? Possibly.
I think at least it starts off in that direction. Might it go in that direction? The question that I would raise, James, is, fury brings him home at last. That seems to be Orestes. But then the brooding mother fury. So what fury is it? It's the brooding mother fury. You got to be careful how you say that, bringing that MF together there. It's the brooding mother fury that is bringing him home. But what does that mean? James, yeah.
Well, just to take a stab at it, kind of reading it directly. I mean, of course, to be a mother is to produce another life. So if the fury is the mother, I mean, and what kind of life might fury bring? Well, maybe something else that's like a fury. So something that is furious, I guess. So it makes me think about this kind of cycle of revenge that we've been seeing again and again and again, that if fury is driving Orestes home, what's this going to do? It's going to give birth to more fury, more rage, more vengeance.
Oh, interesting. James, the way you're reading that is to say that the mother gives birth to the fury. Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, I wonder if that's the sort of implied danger there, because if it's mother fury, if you talk about something else as mother, like, I don't know, like mother wisdom, well, that's like personifying wisdom is going to bring forth more wisdom, I guess, because like begets like is, I guess, the idea from biology. So
Yeah.
if mother is the fury, then I wouldn't expect mother fury to bring forth kindness. You know?
What if I were to read it differently? What if I were to read it this way? What if I were to say, or even to say it differently, what if I were to say motherly fury? Does that make any difference in our understanding of the phrase and of the lines? Or the fury that is motherly like? Joseph, yeah.
Well, just on the motherly fury, obviously, Clytemnestra is furious at the death of Iphigenia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you say that, that's what I think of. If you've killed a mother's daughter, they'll be furious.
Yes, right. And then that would explain the revenge that she has for Agamemnon. But look what it's doing here. It is fury brings him home. It seems that this line is talking about the fury that is moving, that is driving Orestes home to avenge his father's death. Karen, go ahead.
So I thought it, so fury brings him home at last. And then I feel like this is just a reiteration. That's who Fury is. She's a brooding mother Fury.
It is.
It's like, I don't know, left-handed brings him home at last. The left-handed person. I mean, it's just a...
Good. Joseph, yeah, go ahead, Joseph. So in other words, Karen, what you're saying is that they're basically saying the same thing, that these are two lines that are more or less synonymous.
Well, except that no, because the first line says the fury brings Orestes home, and the second line says Fury is a brooding mother.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. Joseph, what else? And then Joe. Yeah.
I'll just be brief. I took it as when I read this, I took it more as the Furies, which are women, and they're bringing him home. They're bringing Orestes home to carry out revenge. But there's a bit of confusion there because we know that in the end, the Furies are aligned more with Clytemnestra,
Right.
and Apollo is aligned with Orestes.
Right.
It seems here that the chorus is perhaps suggesting that the Furies are aligning with Orestes, and so that's some, maybe I got that wrong, or alternatively the chorus is trying to be deliberately ambiguous.
Yeah, good, very good. I think there's some deliberate ambiguity here. Joe, what else?
Well, I had read that as suggesting that it was the murder of the children and eating them early on that had loosed the Furies on the family, these demons.
Uh-huh.
And that now we're bringing a child back by means of those demons to solve the problem.
Yeah.
By getting revenge. I don't know what the individual personifications of the Furies are and which one's the mother, but I just had the sense that this was bringing the curse full circle, and that Orestes is perhaps going to be able to solve the curse.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think that again, Joseph said intentional ambiguity. So Joe, you have explained that other level of ambiguity, that goes back generations. So now we have the possibility of generations of mothers who are furious or infuriated over the death of their children. So then when when Orestes comes, in what way would he be avenging that kind of fury? That's where I see there's a break here, and then sends my mind sort of swirling, saying, what on earth does this mean? Because what we would want is someone who would come along and, well, it would seem, isn't it good enough that Agamemnon has been killed? You know, if it's that generational kind of thing, isn't it good enough that Agamemnon has been killed? No, not good enough. What more could be done? Karen, what do you think? What more could be done here?
I feel like by the internal laws of these plays,
Yeah.
there actually is nothing. They all just have to end up dead. And the whole house of Atreus has to be finished. Just
okay.
That's not what I would say if it was my family, but hopefully never. But within the constraints that Aeschylus has made within these two plays so far,
good.
That seems like that's the only possible ending.
I really like the way you set that up within the constraints that Aeschylus has set up in these plays. James, go ahead.
Right. I mean, we do seem to be trapped in this intergenerational cycle of vengeance. And while in the one sense, the Furies are like, there's sort of a righteous anger there, right? Like, you killed my daughter, great, I'm going to kill you. All right, you killed my father, all right, I'm going to kill you. And that seems like righteous anger, but you look at that whole cycle and it kind of makes you furious, right? So there's sort of this way that the fury kind of drives this fury, and it makes you, we're right, the constraint is a nice word, Karen. We're kind of stuck in this. We're constrained in this repeated cycle of fury, and that might be enough to make you furious. And wouldn't it be nice to break out?
Yes, it would be. Bonnie, go ahead.
Well, maybe it's never been broken because no one has ever shown any remorse. And I think maybe with Orestes, he might be the one to break it because he might already be questioning killing his mom, and he might show some remorse, and maybe that's what's going to break the cycle, is that there's going to be someone who's remorseful for what they've done.
Oh, okay. Instead of just being
vengeful.
Driven, right? Instead of being driven in a vengeful manner. Yeah. Okay. Very good. You know, we're almost out of time, but I want to at least, let's get to, you know, we know that there's the murder scene. I'm on page 216. We're probably going to have to borrow a little time next week for the end of this play. But here in the middle of the page, there's the staging note where it says, the main doors open. Orestes, sword in hand, is standing over the body of Aegisthus, with Pylades close behind him. So that murder has occurred, and now there's a conversation between Orestes and Clytemnestra. At the bottom of the page there, Clytemnestra says, wait, my son, no respect for this, my child? The breast you held, drowsing away the hours, soft gums tugging the milk that made you grow? Orestes, what will I do, Pylades? I dread to kill my mother. Pylades, what of the future? What of the prophet god Apollo, the Delphic voice, the faith and oaths we swear. Make all mankind your enemy, not the gods. Orestes, you win me over. Good advice. Let me stop there. What do you think of Clytemnestra's efforts to stop Orestes? I think there's something going on here. Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
Well, I just think her appeal to him as, you know, I gave birth to you would maybe touch him a little more if she hadn't then exiled him and killed his father. I mean, yes, you know, I'm tempted sometimes to say that to my kids too. Like, how could you say this to me or whatever? You know, don't you know what I went through? But you know, it's a thing. I think that even 4,000 years ago, mothers said to their children, and their children rolled their eyes. Mostly.
Yeah, good. Good. Joseph, what else?
I've reflected upon your question from earlier, whether he was torn or not. He is torn. He's weighed up the pros and cons. He's ultimately been persuaded by a utilitarian argument by Phileides here. Make all of mankind your enemy, not the gods. And I think you are better off siding with the gods than mankind.
Good. Yeah. Given a choice, given the reality of gods, I'd rather deal with mortals than immortals at that level. Oh, geez, I'm being visited by dogs. Sorry. Hey, go lay down. Down. Sorry. What I like about this line, what I like about her appeal, is it brings the beginning of the play together with towards the end of the play here. Remember at the beginning of the play, it's driven by her dream, her terror of the snake at her breast. And here now you have this the literal image where she appeals to him, and it seems that she points to her breast or something, or holds her breast and says, what about this that nursed you and gave your life? And it really, I think, brings these two parts of the play together and affirms for us that Orestes is the snake that is about to harm her. Where she, in effect, what she does is affirm his intentions. James, go ahead.
As we're reading that and talking about it, as we read over those stage directions, I'm really struck by how sort of, the big camera-worthy moment happens off stage. And that happened in the first play too. The actual murders are off stage, almost as if that's not the real drama. It's like the stuff that we see on the stage is the stuff we're talking about here, like that conflict between mother and son, and son versus self and gods and all this stuff. I mean, it just strikes me that the so-called action is not the action.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. We only hear in the first play, we hear it only through Cassandra's description. Very nice. Well, look, we're out of time, and I don't want to take up your break time. Bonnie, please.
Oh, no, just quickly, if you look on page 312, the notes in the back of the book, note good. 514 talks about the symbol of the snake.
Oh, excellent.
So you can just look at the notes, and that will give you what they think.
Very good. Yeah, I will do that. Page 312, note 514. I'll do that, and we'll carry this on. We'll borrow some time next week for the end of this play, the Libation Bearer, and then we will have 2 weeks left to do Eumenides. Thanks for coming, y'all, and participating. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.